Hello friends, welcome back to the Python programming session. In the earlier session, we had started with the geometry manager and we had discussed about the pack method in geometry manager. So we saw how we can give the side, fill, expand and padding parameters in the pack method in geometry manager. In this session, let's see how to use the Tkinter grid geometry manager to position the widgets on the window or the main screen. So, the grid geometry manager uses the concept of rows and columns. So, basically, it uses the concept of rows and columns to arrange the widgets on the window. It is a better way of positioning the widgets on the screen, and it is also a better way than the pack method available in geometry manager. What is the syntax for the grid method? It is the widget, whatever widget we consider. It might be a button widget or a frame widget or a label widget. So whatever widget we are considering, dot grid, then we have to specify the row index, column index, and we can also specify row span, column span, internal and external padding parameters. And there is also one more parameter called sticky. So in this session, let's cover row and column. All the other parameters, let's see it in the consecutive sessions. So what are the important parameters of the grid method? Column. The column index where you want to place the widget. So basically it will have an Excel sheet wherein we have a row and a column. So the grid method works exactly the same way. So column means the column index where we want to place the widget. The first column index is 0 and the first row index is 0, and it keeps on incrementing with 1, 2, 3. So based on the value, we can position the widget on the screen. Then we have the row span. Row span is nothing but the number of rows the widget can span. By default, its row span value is 1, but we can have 2 or 3 so that it will span across 2 rows or 3 rows. Column span, the number of columns the widget can span. By default, column span is 1, but we can give 2 or 3, and the widget spans 2 columns or 3 columns. Then we have sticky. If the cell, if the cell that is a row and a column is larger than the widget, then we can specify the direction where we want to place the widget in that particular cell. So NW means northwest, north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, and then west. Then we have the padding parameters. PadX and PadY are external padding, and iPadX and iPadY are internal padding. All this let's see in the coming sessions. But for this session, let's see into the row and the column. These two parameters let's cover in this particular session. So all these are rows and these are the columns. So if we want to place a widget in 0, 0, then it occupies this particular position. If it is 1, 0, it will occupy this particular position. And suppose we have a button widget say in 0, 0. So let's look into it practically. So let me take my button widget, button 1 equal to button. So this, and I'm placing it in the main window, that is the main window is win win, comma, text equal to button 1. Now I place it on the screen with the help of the grid method. So grid, let me give row equal to 0, comma, column equal to 0. So now when I run this particular code, but okay, button 1. So now when I run this particular code, so I get my button 1 widget on the screen. So this is row 0, column 0. So on this particular position, my button 1 will be placed. Now let me say row 2, column 0, column 2. So row 2 and column 2. Let me close my previous sessions. Now when I run this particular code, we see that the button 1 is placed in 0 index, column in row index is 0 and column index is 0. Why is it so? Because we do not have any widget on row 0, column 0. So it occupies the same position as row 0, column 0. Now if I add one more button, say button 2 equal to button, place it in win, comma, text equal to button 2, button 2. And now let me say button 2 dot grid. I'm placing it using the grid geometry manager, and let me say row equal to 0, comma, column equal to 0. So initially for row 2, column 2, when this button 2 was not present, it occupied the same position as row 0, column 0, because we don't have any widget on the row 0, column 0. So but now I've added a new button with row 0, column 0. Now let's see how it works. Now let's see how it works. So row 0, column 0, I'm having button 2, because my button 2, that is button 2, is present at row 0, column 0. So it has occupied row 0, column 0. And my button 1 now is placed at row 2, column 2. And one more thing what we have to note here is it places the widgets relatively. We don't have anything at row 1, column 1. So button 1 which occupies row 2, column 2, occupies a position of row 1, column 1, because we do not have any widget over there. So initially I'm having row 0, column 0, button 2, and then row 2, column 2, button 1. So this is row 0, column 0, and this is button 1 is relatively positioned at row 2, column 2. Now let me add one more button called button 3 equal to button. It's placed in the main window, comma, text equal to button 3. 3. Place it with the grid method, and I give row 1, column 1. Row equal to 1, comma, column equal to 1. Let me close this window. Now if I run, so I have button 2 at row 0, column 0, button 3 at row 1, column 1, and button 1 at row 2, column 2. Before, in the previous code example, button 1 was occurring here because we did not have any value at row 1, column 1. So button 1 occupied this particular position. But now we are having a button at row 1 column 1. So this button occupies this particular position, and after that the button 1 button will appear. So if we do not have any values in any of the rows, that particular position will be taken by the next row value and next column value. So this we have to remember. Now let me add one more button called button 4, and let it occupy row 4 column 4, sorry, row 3 comma column 3. Let me close this window. Let me run the code. So I got button 2 first because it is row 0 column 0. Then button 3 because it is row 1 column 1. Then button 1 row 2 column 2. Then button 3 row 3 column 3. And now if I want to put a button over here in this particular position, it is row 0 column 1. So let us try that. So let me tell it as button 5. So it is row 0 column 1. Column is equal to 1. Let me close this window and let me run my code again. So I got, sorry, it's button 5. I have to change it over here. I have to make it 5. Close this, run this again. So my button 5 has occupied row 0 column 1. So depending on the row and column index, the buttons get placed on the main screen. So this is how the grid geometry manager positions based on the row index value and column index values. This should be button 4. So now when I run the code, I get button 1, 2, 3, 4 and then 5. It's placed as per the value we have given to the row index and the column index parameters. So this is how we can place the widgets with the help of the grid method in the geometry manager in Tkinter. So now let's look into one more code exam. So this is how. So 0, 0, the widget will be placed here. And if I don't have 1 comma 0, but if I give 2 comma 0, so 2 comma 0 will be placed after 0 comma 0 because 1 comma 0 we do not have any widget. So friends, here what we can see here is I'm having a value at 0 comma 0, 0 comma 1. Now let me take two buttons. Let me say it as 6 and 7. 6. Let me say it as column 3. Let me make it as column 2. Let it be button 7. So, and now let me comment out my 7th button with hash hash. So now I'm having my button 2 at 0 comma 0. So now let us run this particular code and see. See, I have my button 2. Button 2 is present at row 0, column 0. So row 0, column 0, I'm having my button 2. Then I have button 5 at row 0, column 1. So row 0, column 1, I'm having my button 1. Now there is a button 2 at row button 1, button 1. So button 1 is at row 2, column 2. So at column 2 there is a button. So this particular place is given vacant because we don't have any button at row 0, column 2. But at row 0, column 3 I'm having my button 6. So it gets placed. Now if I remove the comments of button 7, let's see how it works. Let me close this. Let me run this again. So my button 7 occupies row 0, column 2. So this is row 0, column 0, row 0, column 1, row 0, column 2, and row 0, column 3. So this is how it organizes the widgets on the main screen. So this is one of the example through which we understood how the grid method places the widgets on the screen. Now let me take my new file and let us see one more code example. So we saw how we can place different buttons on the widget by giving row and column values. Now we have all seen the login screen wherein user enters the username and password. So with the help of grid method, let's see how it works. So firstly I'm having a label called username password, which is placed at row L1. L1 is username. It is placed at row 0, column 0. Then I'm having my label password, which is present at row 1, column 0. So let's see how it works. From Tkinter, import all win equal to tk. Then I'm having my label 1, L1 equal to label. It's placed in the main window, so I'm saying it as win, comma, text equal to username. Let me have one more label, label 2 equal to label, widget name is L2, variable name is L2, and the widget we are using is label, placed in the main window, comma, text equal to password. Now I have to position these two labels on the screen. So let me say L1.grid row equal to 0, comma, column equal to 0, and I'm giving pad y equal to 5, that is external padding. Let's see this in the next coming session. So for now I've just given it as pad y equal to 5. Let me copy this and let me say L2 dot grid. It's in row 1, column 0, and then pad y. Now I'm having my entry widget. So let me say E1 equal to entry. It's placed in the main window. Then E2 dot, E2 equal to entry win. So it's placed in the main window. Now I have to position these two entry widgets. So let me take this for L1 whatever I had given, Control C. So let me make it as E1 and this as E2. It's in row 0, it's in row 1, it should be in column 1 and this also in column 1. So row 0 column 0 username appears, row 0 column 1 entry for the username appears, row 1 column 0 password appears, row 1 column 1 the entry widget for the password appears. Now let me have one button widget, button win comma text equal to login. Now I have to place my button widget dot grid. So button widget is placed at row 2 column 1, row equal to 2 comma column equal to 1. And now let me have the main event loop. So win dot main loop. Okay. Now let me run this particular code. So we got username, password, entry box for username, entry box for password and a login button. So friends, here we saw username is placed at row 0 column 0. So it will be row 0 column 0 position. And password was placed at 1 comma 0. So this is row 0, this is row 1. So first row column is 0. The column value for both of them is 0. But this is at row 0, this is at row 1. Similarly, the entry box for username is at row 0, column 1 and entry box for password is row 1, column 1. So we had two entry boxes. Then the button was placed at row 2. So this is the row 2, row 0, row 1, row 2 and column 1. So this is the column 1. So the login button has been placed at this particular position. So with the help of rows and column values, we can position or place the widgets on the main screen. So this is how the row and column values in the grid widget comes in handy. Hope so friends, it was clear for you. We saw two examples, code examples, one with the buttons and one the login screen. So in this session, we saw how Grid Geometry Manager used the concept of rows and columns to arrange the widgets on the window. It is a better way of positioning the widgets on the screen. So in this session, we covered row and column. In the consecutive sessions, let's cover row span, column span, iPad X, iPad Y, Pad X, Pad Y and sticky. So this is how the layout looks, the grid method, how it places the widgets on the screen. So hope so friends, it is clear for you. If you have any doubts, please do reach to me out in the comment section. If you like my video, click on the like button and please do subscribe to get notifications of my new videos. Till then, see you. Bye bye.